All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 409 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way, according to God's design. I'm your host, Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married, but I try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of the goals of a healthy marriage and family. And today we're going to be reviewing a video by Nick Freitas, and it's entitled 7 Tips for Girl Dads. And the reason that I'm now recording this is I am going to be a girl dad very, very soon. And so I'm trying to get some tips on that for myself. And if you are perhaps a girl dad or would like to be a girl dad one day, or you know you are going to be a girl dad one day, then this video will hopefully generate a lot of value for you. I'm just going to go through this video by Nick Freitas. I'll probably cover some statistics today, just on the, as I always do, just on the benefit of having married parents for children. But I'm probably mostly just going to watch this video by Nick today and just kind of give you my thoughts on it, tell you what I think about it. So and this is my first time. By the way, let me know if you think the sound is any different today, because I've sound paneled this room, and so I'm curious to see if it sounds any bit different, or if it's just kind of the same as it always has been. So let me know what you think of that there. And I'll probably try a couple different sound things today, just controlling like how far from the mic I get. Like back here, for example, I'm talking the same volume, but I'm further from the mic. And then if I talk that same volume right here, this is what it sounds like. So I'm just kind of playing around with stuff like that to see how it sounds and what sounds better. And yeah, just let me know what you think. But let's go ahead and get into this video by Nick, because I want some tips on how to be an awesome girl dad. And hopefully you are interested as well.
All right, so the first thing that you need to know as a father is you need to tell your daughter that you love her, right? Now,
Okay.
inevitably, whenever I talk about this and other content, people will always come in and feel duty-bound to remind me that, well, you also have to show her. Yeah, I know that, right? There's all sorts of ways that you show your daughter that you love her. Some of it is doing the things that dads are supposed to do, like protecting and providing for the family. The reason why I tell men you need to say it is because a lot of times men expect other people to understand that all of those things that we go through in order to protect, in order to provide, in order to make sure that you have the things you need, that's one of the ways that we say, I love you. But with your little girl, you need to verbalize it. I often tell this funny story about when I found out I was going to be a father, when I had a little girl and I had a buddy in the Army who was a total man whore, right? This guy was a player. He would go to the club, come back with a girl, and then go back, right? Like he was a player. And I remember asking him, like, how do I raise my daughter in such a way to avoid guys like you, right? And he was a good sport. And he looked at me and he goes, tell your daughter you love her. And he elaborated on that. He's like, because if you don't, some guy like me will, and she's going to believe it.
Sheesh.
So understand something, guys. A player can see a broken daughter a mile away. He can see the daddy issues. And one of the things that was always very important to me was that I demonstrate love to my daughters, not just in all the things that I would provide or the time that I would spend, but that I would also verbalize it. I wanted them to associate those words with certain behaviors and a certain degree of sincerity, so that one day when I wasn't around and some guy said, I love you, but they would be able to distinguish between the counterfeit and the genuine article. I can't.
That's really good. I'm going to pause him here and say, sheesh. I heard a story in church once. And I do not think I'm not saying this is a good idea, but I heard a story about this marriage in church once where the husband and wife got married. They lived like 30 years together, and they were having marital issues, and the wife says to the husband, you never tell me that you love me. You haven't told me that you love me in blank number of days or blank number of weeks or blank number of months or sadly, even blank number of years. It doesn't matter. And the husband goes, he's trying to defend himself, and he says, well, I told you that I loved you on the day that I married you, and if I change my mind, I'll let you know. I think that's a terrible, just going back to what Nick said, it's like men expect their actions to be what tells their wife and children their love. And that is part of it. right? Actions do speak louder than words. You can't be saying you love somebody and not taking care of them. But at the same time, exactly what he said happens if you don't tell your daughter that you care about her. I think, because I mean, immediately as he's talking there, I was just thinking, like, somebody's gonna tell her that. Somebody's gonna tell her that. And you wanna make sure that she's not getting a fundamental need met from a dangerous person that you should have met for her. Because yeah, that could lead her to a road of heartbreak and, disappointment and devastation because she became attached to a dangerous person. So yeah, just make sure, I guess, and I guess that could, I guess that could apply for boys as well. But I think there's this. Some of you may have heard of John Eldridge. Um, he has an awesome book. Him and his wife kind of wrote these two books together. One was entitled Wild at Heart, and one was entitled Captivated. And he wrote Wild at Heart. They wrote Wild at Heart, I should say. I guess it was mostly John, and then Stacy mostly wrote the one for girls. But they wrote Wild at Heart for men, and they wrote Captivated for women. And what those books are about is kind of speaking to the mission statement that's in the DNA of every man and woman. And kind of, they have this kind of thesis, this argument that all men have something in common as far as purpose goes. And, he lays that out for you about what it is. And all women have something, embedded within them as far as purpose goes that's in their genetic code, like a purpose that all women have in common. And this is not saying that all women are the same and all men are the same. This is saying that within every man and every woman, there is this unique calling, purpose, desire that is specific to the male sex and the female sex. In fact, let me see if I can Google those real quick for you, because I really would like to read them to you. But the reason I bring it up is that one of those purposes that John and Stacy argue all women have is to bring beauty to the world. To bring beauty to the world, to make things around them more beautiful, to be beautiful, and bring that beauty to the people around them. That's a fundamental purpose of what being a woman is. And so when you say, I love you, or when you say, you look beautiful today, or when you say, I love that dress, or when I love your hair, when women go to so much effort to bring beauty to the environment around them and to make themselves beautiful for other people. And it's a really, that's a beautiful calling that they have. And kind of every married couple kind of tells you this, like, and this is of course not a universal rule, but as a general rule, it's true. Women probably spend, a significant portion of their life more than men preparing themselves, like getting ready. They probably spend like 5 to 6 times, maybe even like 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times the amount of time that men do in the bathroom getting ready. Like, and you might think that's like funny. You're probably laughing when you hear me say that, or at least you are in your head, because people start popping to mind like this. And this has been true in my life, just across the board. Like, women put in way more work into presenting themselves beautifully to their environment. And it's just, again, the reason I notice that trend so, frequently, like, it is almost every woman I know is like that. Like, when I compare every woman I've ever met in my whole life to every man I've ever met in my whole life, that rule is almost universally true. And anytime you have a rule that's that universally true, that speaks to the nature of what a woman's purpose is. Like, there's something there that women want, that's significant for them, and so, yeah, that's, in fact, I won't pull up the rest for you because that's the only one I wanted to talk about. But really, just keep that in mind. Like, your daughter's goal, or one of her purposes, one of her goals that she's going to grow up having, something that's, innately in her, is this desire to bring beauty to the world, this desire to take care of other people, to make other people's life easier, to um, bring beauty to her environment. And so if you're telling her these things like, I love you, I think you're beautiful, then you're kind of you're affirming that purpose within her. You're telling her she's doing a good job at a fundamental, purpose that she has. You're giving her that that affection that she needs. That's a need inside her, and that way, and thereby you're ensuring that other more dangerous people do not use that desire and need that she has for that affirmation to control her and exploit her and coerce her and get things out of her for their own selfish motivation and gain. And so, yeah, I love that he said that. I think that's definitely true.
Emphasize this enough. Show your daughter that you love her, but also tell her she needs to hear those words and she needs to hear them from you. All right, so that's number one. What's number two? Believe it or not, it's also I love you. But this time you're saying it to her mom. You should love your wife, right? And hopefully you've married a good woman so that saying I love you is very, very natural.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I told myself I wasn't going to pause until I got to the end of every one of these sections, but I'm just going to pause real quick here and just say, I think the reason he's going to say this is important, and this is what my dad did with my sister, and you are showing your daughter who to marry based on how you treat your mom, because she is, and I've seen this over and over and over. Girls usually end up marrying somebody that was like their dad in some capacity. Okay, so you're the roadmap she has for what a husband should be. You're literally showing her that as she grows up, she's watching how you treat her mom, your wife, her mom, and she is formulating her understanding of what a husband is, and she is going to look for somebody that matches that blueprint when she is searching for a husband. So this is like, I imagine he's going to say this is critical because you're basically deciding what her future husband is going to be like. So think about the weight of that for a second. How you treat her mom is showing her, is deciding you're setting the parameters for what her husband can be like. Okay. And I mean, I don't, it's hard to like, I don't know. The person who my sister marries, I think is going to be the kind of guy, well, I know he is. I know he's going to be the kind of guy who really will do whatever it takes, no matter how hard, to make everything better for my sister. Like, he's going to be because that's what my dad did for my mom. Like, any problem, any crisis, anything that needed done, any amount of money that needed spent, any amount of time that needed allocated to whatever problem arose, Dad always just immediately handled. Like, it was never a question of whether or not he was going to take care of that. Any problem that was there, was just boom, Dad was going to handle it, or had already handled it before you realized there was a problem. Like, so that him doing that for so many years, like, my sister saw that, and from that, I think, formulated the idea about marriage that your husband needs to be able to take care of you. He needs to be able to take care of you and do whatever is necessary to make sure everything is flowing smoothly for both you and your marriage and the family at large and people in your immediate vicinity and friends and family and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, it's just, I think, and I mean, I just see a lot, like when I look at my relationship with Lainey, I mean, there's a lot about me that's very similar to my father-in-law, Danny. Like, and I think that he shaped kind of what she looked for and who she ended up deciding to marry just by how he treated, her mother. He's just a very good girl dad and very, I don't know, just seemed very patient and so that's what she looked for, and I'm not saying that they'll always hit it, the first try. Your daughter will always, hit it out of the park. The first date she goes on will be the person she's marrying. I mean, obviously, I think that would be the best way to do it, and I think that's always the smoothest way to transition from singlehood into married life. But, yeah. So this really, really good so far. Let's see why he says it's important that you tell and show her mom that you love her.
But the reason why I say your daughter needs to see you saying, I love you to your wife is because obviously the love that you show your daughter and the love that you show your wife is different. Your daughter needs that love and compassion that comes from a father. But she also needs to observe the sort of I love you between a husband and a wife because you are setting an example and you're setting expectations in her own mind for what she should have one day.
Mm-hmm.
And if the
Amen.
only
Yep.
interactions that she sees between you and your wife are fighting or arguing or a sense of frustration with one another, well, then she's going to start to think that's normal. And you don't want that.
In fact, because when that happens, that's when either she formulates the idea that marriage is not something worth pursuing, and she chooses other romantic living situations that come with very dangerous consequences, or she chooses to accept marriage and just goes into it with the attitude that that's all marriage can be, and that it can't be anything more than that or anything better than that. And either one of those scenarios are very sad. So I totally agree with what he's saying here. She needs to, I say this all the time, kids in general need to see abundant affection within marriage. Okay, you can slam PDA all you want, but perhaps the reason that we have a declining marriage rate and why 49% of young adults ages 18 and older are married in this country today and over half of them aren't married, and why we have postponed marriage like 10 years, 7 years further into the future than we did in 1960 is because we are not presenting marriage to children as a desirable living situation. And one of the ways you can do that is have abundant affection visible for all to see, okay? There should be lots of kissing. There should be lots of hugging. There should be lots of sweet words, kind words, grateful and thankful words. That should be how children and other people see you engaging with your spouse. That's how you should be presenting. Because man, marriage is your child's, like, seriously one of your child's best chances at happiness. And so if you really care about your child's happiness, and I'm talking like from numbers, this is empirical data, that is not an opinion claim. Most people's one of their best chances at happiness is marriage. It's like a 545% boost in your odds child of being of self-identifying as very happy. Okay, if you compare that to like college, higher education, more money, just marriage and not a happy marriage, it's nowhere close. Having a very happy marriage is like a huge boost in your odds of being happy, okay, in life. And having a marriage is higher than all that other stuff, even if it's not self-identified as a happy marriage. Even if people are just saying, they're in a marriage, it boosts their odds of being happy more than, higher income and going to college and stuff like that. And those things boost your odds of being happy a lot. And so, yeah, this is just very important. You need to present marriage as a desirable road because it is more than likely your child's road to happiness and road to service and the intrinsic reward that comes through service and road to ministry and just all of that. So yeah.
So tell your wife you love her, and tell your wife you love her in a variety of situations where your daughters can observe that. There is nothing quite so beneficial and really gives your children a sense of security as seeing a loving relationship between their father and their mother. But here's another thing I'm gonna tell you. I love you is not just in the good times. It's also when there's frustrating times, when there's difficult times. I have argued with my wife in front of my daughters. And some of that is just spur of the moment. I don't want to pretend that everything I've ever done is come from some sort of calculated plan to properly educate my children. But one of the things I've always tried to do is argue with my wife in such a way that when my children see it, they know that I'm not arguing with somebody I'm just angry at. I'm arguing with the woman I love. And the way I argue with my wife, just in general, but also in front of my children, is also supposed to present to them a demonstration of how a husband and wife adjudicate a difference of opinion, even sometimes if it's a passionate difference of opinion. Because I don't want them to think that arguments automatically mean that you're leaving or that there's something fundamentally wrong with the relationship.
Yeah, I think this is another thing kids need to know. Kids need to be sheesh, man. You want to have a peaceful relationship? your partner, you and your children, your entire family, and the world at large, all your friends, all your family need to know that literally nothing can stop your union. Okay? They need to know that no difference of opinion, no argument, nothing is going to separate what God has joined together. They need to know, they need to have the scriptural vision for marriage. Okay? What God has joined together, no man is to separate. Okay? That needs to be understood. Okay? So like no problem, no disagreement, no argument, no, difference of opinion, nothing. Okay? So if we're arguing about something, never in the back of my mind am I sort of afraid that you're going to leave depending on the outcome of this argument. Never am I even remotely thinking that. That should never enter my wildest dreams. That should never enter my child's wildest dreams. Mom and dad are arguing about something. I wonder if they'll make it. I wonder if they will get a divorce. I wonder if whatever. If they're wondering that, I'm failing. Okay? My wife and I are failing at raising a daughter who knows what marriage is. Okay? We're failing in that way. If there is even if there's a doubt in other people's mind, we're failing. Okay, there should be no doubt in anybody's mind, and that starts with us. Like when my wife and I disagree about something, she never thinks, and I'm speaking for her here, but I know this is true. I think this is true. Obviously, you never know, but based on the evidence, this is my best guess. She is not wondering if I'm going to leave, because I have communicated to her both with words and actions that is never going to happen. Okay, and I can speak for myself here. I never within my wildest dreams ever think that during difficult times or during, challenging times or times where there's an argument or times when she's not feeling well or times when she's not showing as much affection as normal, I never think maybe she's going to leave me. I never does that enter my mind. And I've been in relationships where that was the case, where that was always a worry for me. And usually that worry's there for good reason. And that's you have not gotten that commitment out of your partner, okay? They have not given you that promise. They have not given you that commitment. And that is an exhausting kind of relationship to be in, not only for you, but it teaches the people that are watching you that relationships between a man and a woman are not permanent and cannot be permanent and often do not last. That's what it teaches them, okay? Because they're formulating they're deciding whether or not they want to get married based on how you act, and they're deciding their opinion of marriage based on how you act. And so everyone around you, including your children and especially your sons and daughters, need to know that mommy and daddy leaving each other, abandoning each other, being not on the same team, fighting against each other instead of for a better connection with each other is never a possibility. That should not even pop into their heads. Okay? They should know that marriage is a decision, that no matter what, we're on the same team. We're going to protect our connection from anything that would threaten it. And that's a beautiful thing that will really transform your kid's life, I think.
I want them to see that couples argue, but when they do, they should argue with a degree of respect. And they should always argue with the intent of coming to the same conclusion at the end of it, because ultimately I'm not trying to beat my wife in an argument. She's not trying to beat me in an argument. We're trying to better understand what the source of disagreement is, what the grievance is.
Yeah. And get rid of it. Like you're really fighting that when arguments happen in my marriage, I'm fighting to protect my connection with Lainey. If I find something that's in the way of that, I'm going to get rid of it with gusto. I'm going to massacre whatever is in the way of me and my wife being connected, okay? And that's the only way to have a good marriage. You have to get rid of anything that's in the way or a problem. Like that's all it comes down to, really.
That we can get through it and then move on from there as a unified married couple. And when your children see that, when your children see you say, I love you to your wife, when they also see you disagree and to do so respectfully in a loving way in order to get to a mutually agreeable conclusion, that is also setting expectations from them. Because again, I don't want my kids to think that marriage is all lollipops and puppy dogs. There's going to be times where you disagree, but you should always disagree with a sense of love and respect for the person that you're spending the rest of your life with and raising a family with.
And I agree with him there, but I do also want to make the distinction that when you do marriage right, most of it is lollipops and puppy dogs. Like, it's literally perfection when you're doing it right. Like, it's when you start doing it wrong that there can become problems with it. And you go ahead and accuse me of saying marriage fixes all problems. I know everybody does that anyway, and I'm like the running joke of my area because everybody thinks that I think that marriage fixes all problems. And I'm not saying it fixes everything, but man, it fixes pretty much everything. Like, because it's God's road for most people, man. It is God's road for most people, and I've demonstrated that in hundreds of episodes before this with scripture and statistics and anecdotal evidence and empirical data. It's just like overwhelmingly the case that, you know, the marriage is just the best way for you to live your life in all likelihood, and not for everybody, obviously, but. And so I don't know, man. It's just don't think that marriage is. Everybody's always talking about how hard marriage is. Everybody's talking about how hard marriage is. Marriage is not hard if you're doing it right. Okay, and sometimes there are seasons. There are seasons where it's hard. Okay, there are days where it's hard. There are hours and minutes where it's hard. Again, in my experience, and I know I haven't lived an entire life with my partner yet, and I know we have hard things ahead, but those hard things don't have to be, what's the word? The way of life in your marriage. Like, the way of life in your marriage is happiness and connection with each other. And that's the case in my marriage, and it's going to always be that way. Because, and you might say, well, you just haven't gone through something hard yet. It's like, yeah, we have. Now, we might have the hardest thing we're ever going to go through together ahead of us, but we've gone through hard things together, and we'll continue to go through hard things together. And we're not going to let that get in the way of our connection. And that's just what we've decided. And I'll see you in, 40 years, and I'll be saying the same thing that I am now. And maybe then you'll believe me. Or you might still be saying, well, you still haven't encountered the hardest thing. Whatever. If you're at that point, you're denying all the evidence of your eyes, and I have nothing more that I can say that will help you. But seriously, like, your marriage does not have to be miserable. Your marriage can be absolutely fun and awesome and easy. There, I said it. If you make good choices, your marriage can be easy.
Okay, so this next thing that your daughters need to hear from you or experience from you is, I don't know, for me it was a little bit tough to articulate. I remember the first time I was trying to explain what I was thinking about, and I was really uncomfortable because the word I kept coming up with was vulnerability. And look, there's no shortage of women on the internet that will tell you, oh yeah, we want a man to demonstrate vulnerability. Yeah, I don't think they do. And I was trying to express this to my wife, and thankfully I've married a very good woman, and she said, I think the word you're actually looking for is tenderness. Because let's face it, as men, we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to have our emotions under control. We're supposed to be the safe harbor in the storm. And how are you supposed to do that? Like, when you develop the capabilities and the control over one's emotions in order to have your wits about you and to have control of the situation when everything else is chaos, and then all of a sudden people are telling you, oh yeah, but I want you to be vulnerable. Yeah, but in what situation? And my wife, she summed up. She goes, no, I want tenderness, and your girls want tenderness. It's not that they want you to be weak or vulnerable. They just want to know that they have an effect on you, an emotional impact on you. And I'm going to tell you right now, I love my little girls. And they do get tenderness from me, whether I would like to or not at times. They just have that impact. But I guess what I would encourage men to understand is, it's okay, right? It's okay to show that tenderness with them. I remember a time not so long ago where I was at a daddy-daughter dance with both my girls, but was kind of impacting me about it very specifically this time is that I'm about to walk my oldest daughter down the aisle. And as we're at this daddy-daughter dance, I looked at her and I said, well, I guess this is the last daddy-daughter dance you and I are going to get to go to together. And without skipping a beat, she looked at me and she said, Dad, he's marrying me, not adopting me. We still get to go to daddy-daughter dances. Now, I consider myself a fairly tough guy, right? I've got some tough guy credentials, military combat, all that good stuff. But man, I got choked up when she said that to me.
Bet you did, yeah.
And my wife was explaining, yeah, that's it. That's it right there. That's the tenderness that they see. They want their dad to be strong. They want him to be tough. They want him to be there for him. But they also like the idea that There's very few people in the world that can drive daddy to that kind of emotion, but they
Yeah.
can do it.
And also, I think just like you need, what's the word? People want to, I think girls, and I've worked with thousands of kids, okay? If not thousands, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Because when I started teaching in 2023, no, 2022, I no, 2021, no, 2020, well, 2021, I student taught. So I probably had like 80 kids then when I student taught, maybe. I was around like 80 kids. Okay. But then when I moved the next year, I subbed, and I subbed every single grade, almost every single classroom in my local school district, elementary, of 650 students that year. Okay. And that whole year, I got a full year of teaching. Like I was there every day. I got to know all of those 650 students to some degree or another. Some I got to build more of a bond with, some I did not have as much an opportunity to build a bond with, but I got to know all of them to some extent. Okay. And I'm not talking just like seeing how that, like I talked to them, that kind of thing. I knew kind of how they behaved. I knew how they interacted with their friends. They each had a way of interacting with me. I would talk about different things with them. So like I knew them not well, but I had a connection with them. And then the next year, some of those kids moved on and I got new kids, some of them, and not a full 650 new kids because there's some that remained in the school, and just moved up a grade, but some of them left and moved to middle school, and we got some coming in from preschool. And so there's always a constant influx and outflux of kids into my school. So at this point, having done that for, 3 years, and 1 year I taught kindergarten and I got to know 11 students really, really well, because I was around them every day. And then the rest of my time at my local elementary, I've had 650 students where I know tons of them in a less intense way. Okay. But I've worked with lots of them. Okay. And a pattern I can tell you with girls is they want to feel comfortable and safe around people they're close with. They don't want to be scared of somebody that's supposed to be in their corner. Okay. So like, I think this is where the tenderness comes into play. It's like, yeah, they want to feel protected. They want to feel like you're capable of handling threats. They want to feel secure. They want to feel like like he said, I think that he used the word like safe haven. They want to feel that from you, but they also want to feel like you're safe for them. Like that you're tender enough to take care of an issue they have or listen to them or, hold them gently when they need something. Like they want to feel that too. So I think it's just kind of a both thing. Like as a dad, you might just need to be able to do both those things. And there's an appropriate time for both of them. You kind of gotta adapt to the situation. And so, yeah, I like that he said that. It's really good.
And it's okay to let them see that they can do it. And so encourage that, because I will tell you right now, that will be some of the most memorable times for you and probably for them as well. So I'm not telling you to be weak. I'll never tell you to be weak.
Right.
But definitely show that tenderness.
Yeah.
The new bearskin hoodie.
While he's running this ad, I just want you to think about kind of the consequences of not doing what he's saying here. Like, what's the alternative to not being tender? It's like being rough, being stoic, being gruff, being aggressive, and all those words are not attributes that are conducive to getting closer and building a connection with a small little girl. Okay. Like, that she wants to know you're capable of doing that and will do that to any threat and have that protective element too. But like with her, you're not protecting, you need to be able to switch off the protection mode. Like, cause it's not protection time anymore. It's daddy nurture time. So like, you've got to be able to like protector mode when there needs to be protector mode. And she needs to have the confidence in you and like, know you're strong and capable of handling stuff. But she's not a threat, and she needs to know she doesn't need to feel like a threat. You don't need to be treating her like she's a threat, like she's, and I think, most dads know this and they're awesome at it. But I do think it's an important piece of being a dad. So like if you're about to be a dad, you probably need to know that, because like that's a big part of it. Like look how the dads in your life who are good dads behave towards their daughters and other people, because it's different. It's different. There's like more boundaries and caution that with other people. Because there could be potential threats out there. But with his daughter, it's like he's going to behave a lot more she's not the threat. She's the treasure that he's protecting and nurturing and building a bond with. So
This one is, believe it or not, silliness. And I think this one actually comes a little bit easier to dads. As you get a little bit older in this dad gig, you like the dad jokes and things like that. But it's also spending that time, especially with your little girls, doing things that if your guy friends were looking at you would think was just silly or outrageous. I'm going to tell you right now, I have worn makeup. I have worn a feather boa. I have worn a tiara. I have drank tea. I have eaten cookies that had salt instead of sugar used, all because my little girl was very, very excited to be able to spend some time with daddy. And I thoroughly enjoyed taking that time to just be silly with my little girls.
yeah.
Whether it was trying out different throwing moves on their bed before they went to sleep at night, because their mother had told me, hey, you need to put the girls to bed. And I was like, oh, what that means is that we should spend the next half hour totally riling them up, chasing them around, tickling them, throwing them.
See, this is again a standard dad skill. Like, kids love to be thrown in the air. Man, at school, I think the age where they don't like to be thrown in the air anymore is like around second. Well, really more like third probably. They're getting a little too big to be thrown in the air. But like first, kindergarten, preschool's they're a little small. So first kindergarten age, man, you want to get to those kids' heart and build a connection with them, just pick them up, throw them in the air, catch them. I mean, that is how you build a bond with a kid, man. So like roughhousing, what's the rough and tumble, not roughhousing. Rough and tumble is a better word. Like good-natured physical, engagement. That's kind of what kids need there. Silliness, like not taking yourself seriously, being goofy, doing things to try to make them laugh, making faces, reacting, in a funny way to things that happen. Those that kids love to see you do those things. I mean, they just come alive when you do those. So yeah, I can really see it. And this is where it becomes, I think it's going to become really fun for me to be a dad, because like I love doing that stuff. So, in the newborn stage, it's not going to be so much that they have different needs. There's going to be a lot of mom dependence. There's even going to be a lot of me dependence, but it's going to be more like basic caregiving needs and not like, interaction needs. I mean, there's peekaboo and stuff like that, and hiding behind stuff and stuff like that. Object permanence is what they call it in school. And like, you can go behind something and a kid still knows you're there, and then you peek out, that kind of thing. They love those games, but I don't know. The games that you can play with them broaden as they get older is what I'm saying. So yeah, because I think there's some critical years in there, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old years where they're really, that's going to be how you approach and how you build a connection.
Do that. And it's important, and they do remember it. I had somebody ask me once, like, do you really think your little girls remember all that silly stuff that you do with them when they're toddlers? I said, yeah, I do actually. Do they remember everything? No, but I'll tell you this much: when they're 5, they remember all those silly things you did at 3. When they're 8, they remember what you did at 5. When they're 12, they remember what you did at 8. And when they get into those teenage years where you desperately want to maintain those lines of communication with them and be the sort of person that they can still come to, that's when they will remember all of the things that you have done. And I'm telling you right now, it's that trust that's been established. So even if they don't remember a singular event, they remember that you were there and that you made time for them, and that time was every bit as important to them as it was to you. Embrace those moments of being silly with your little girls. All right, next one, a little bit more serious. Don't break, but bend for them occasionally. I wouldn't consider myself a strict parent, but we definitely had some rules.
Yeah.
We had some rules that most people would probably look at nowadays in the 21st century and think that I was being draconian. Things like we didn't let our daughters date, which just seems absurd to people. We had some kind of strict rules with respect to their access to cell phones. We used to tell
Well, I think all those. I think there needs to be rules around all those things, and I do think you can get into. And this is just my personal opinion. I think Nick Freitas, I'm sure, has done a great job being a dad, but I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to raise my own kids, and I've seen it. I've seen extremes taken on both ways of basically parents letting their date without teaching them how to date. It's like, why do we assume we shouldn't teach our children how to date? Because we like, what do we just throw them in and like, you'll figure it out. You'll know what to do. It's like, no, they won't. They'll make a lot of mistakes if you just throw them into the pool. So like you gotta, but also not doing it, like not throwing them into the pool and just not teaching them how to swim, not teaching them how to date, just, is also comes with extreme consequences. And like finding yourself 23 with no prospects and like having not spent any, time, any years bonding with a man or woman towards the goal of marriage. And now you're starting from ground zero when you should already be getting married. Like that's the consequence of not dating. But then the consequence of doing dating badly is like heartbreak and poor sexual ethic, practice and divorce practice and, quitting when you're having an issue practice and, reinforcing the idea that relationships are permanent practice and just all this stuff is junk too. So there's this sweet middle ground you've got to do. It's like, I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my daughter date when I'm not going to let is a bad word. I'm going to encourage my daughter today. Cause the odds are marriage is going to be the road for her. And of course I don't know that for a fact, but I know that for like 90, I always say like 90 to 99. I'm just making that number up. But for a vast majority of young men and women, marriage is the road that God has for them. So the odds are she's going to be in that camp. Okay. So there's a point that I'm going to be encouraging her to do that in the correct way. And I think that point might be when she's listened to all 400 and whatever, or 600 at the time, or 800, whatever, podcast episodes that I've done on marriage and dating and getting married young and all that stuff, when she can tell me what marriage is, what are the benefits of doing this thing that, is so good for people, what are the dangers that she needs to avoid, what are some ways you can do marriage and dating wrong, when she can tell me like all that stuff, what are some important things that you need to make sure you're doing? What is something that you should not enter a relationship with a man until you know he has? What is the most important thing that you need to know when you're entering a relationship with the most important things, plural, that you need to know when you're entering a relationship with a guy? When she can tell me that stuff, man, I'm gonna be running her down the aisle. I'm not gonna be walking. I want to be helping her get to that thing because that's how she's gonna really flourish. So, yeah, I don't know. Dating is a really taboo topic, man, because you got a lot of heartbreak around it. You got a lot of experience with it. People have lots of different experiences with it. So they're raising their kids to obviously, avoid those bad experiences they had and keep the good experiences they had. So I don't know. I'm still figuring it out, but that's what I'm thinking of how I'm going to teach my daughter to date, maybe. When she can tell me the pitfalls and the things that she needs to do prior, and she understands dating and she's able to commit. She's not wishy-washy or fickle or, lies or anything like that to boys and men. She'll be good at it. I'll teach her.
Our kids that they don't have a room, we have a room and we let them use it. And part of this was about establishing the idea that if we need to go into your room and check something for your welfare or your benefit, then we're going to do it because it's our room, not yours. Now, this didn't mean that we didn't allow them their privacy. Of course we did. But it was about creating this proper mindset in the relationship and letting them know that we love them, but we are the authority figures in the house, and we're going to exercise that authority to their benefit. Now, what do I mean by bending the rules? Well, let me tell you something. I'm allergic to cats. Now, ask me how many cats I have. Well, I have 2 right now. I've had as many as 3, and now I even have an indoor cat. Why? Because my youngest daughter, right, when she comes up to me with her pigtails and she smiles with her little dimples, can pretty much talk me into a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, I have 2 cats, Phoenix and Boop. Boop is the indoor cat. Boop is the indoor cat that I remember promising to my wife I would never allow. And I held strong for some time. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had cats before this particular cat, but this is the first indoor cat. The first time I allowed a cat, I will never forget sitting down with my children And they had started to feed a stray, which is always a wonderful idea.
Oh,
But they fed this
it's
stray,
over.
and then they named the
over.
stray. I come home from a business trip. I'm wondering what this cat is doing on my property. And so the kids come in and they're like, Daddy, if you let us keep the cat, we'll take care of it, we'll feed it, we'll do all of those things. And I remember looking at them going, oh, that's adorable. Yeah. I know you'll do all those things, but that's not going to get you the cat. And they looked at me confused, like, well, what's going to get us the cat? I'm like, I want to know what I get. Like, what do you want? I said, oh, I don't know. I want things like toast and coffee in the morning. I want my car washed once a month. There's a number of other things I can think of, but I'm going to let you go ahead and confer with counsel. That was my wife, because I knew she was in on this. I'm going to let you confer with counsel, and then you come back with a contract, right? And then when we sign that contract,
Oh my
then
gosh.
maybe I'll consider it. So they go off and they confer with their attorney, with counsel. And they come back and they're like, all right, Daddy, here's the deal. If you let us keep the cat, we will make you toast and coffee every weekday when we wake up, and once a month we will wash your car. I'm like, okay, you're listening. Okay, I'll agree to this, provided that cat is an outdoor cat, not an indoor cat, because Daddy's allergic. So all three of them sign it. I sign it. There's the contract. 2 weeks later, the cat runs away. And I come downstairs and I'm like, I don't see my toast and coffee. There must be some mistake. And they're like, oh, Daddy, the stray cat ran away. I'm like, oh, that's horrible. But see, the thing is, your contract says you can keep the cat. It doesn't guarantee the cat's going to stay here. So I'm going to need that toast and coffee, right?
Oh, gosh.
I go on another business trip and I start seeing pictures on Facebook of a different cat. So I come home and I'm like, oh, contract renegotiation time. Let's see what you guys got. And my oldest daughter looks at me and goes, no,
goes inside.
Daddy, read your contract. It doesn't say which cat. So don't break, but bend at times, because one, they're going to impress you with your ingenuity. And two, I actually found out I kind of like cats. All right. So what are we at to? Number 6 here. All right. Counsel.
Oh my goodness.
You're,
I just realized I didn't pause before he does counsel. I didn't pause for the bend for your daughter rules. I don't know. I think something good that can come from that is, well, it kills tyranny. It kills tyranny. And I know you don't think tyranny might be present in your parenting life, but if you're listening to your kids and you're, trying to please them and do things they want at the same time as enforcing boundaries that you know are good for them, that's a pretty good way to kill tyranny. Number 2, it makes her feels like she's important, and it makes her feel like her opinion's important, and she has pull and sway in your heart. I mean, I imagine the feeling in a girl's mind that I can sway this, this 200-pound guy. I can sway his mind. It feels pretty good for her, I imagine. What's the word? It just lets her know you care, I assume. I imagine it lets her know you care when she has some pull in your life and your decision-making process and all that. These are just all my thoughts of how it would impact a daughter to hear this kind of stuff. A dad bending, a little bit, not breaking the rules, but bending, accommodating, figuring out what's best for, your specific daughter. I imagine that just does nothing but help her as well. So, yeah.
Your daughter needs counsel from her father. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of dads make this mistake where they think that there's certain things that the mom just handles that. And look, there are certain things that, yes, mom is far more suited to handle than dad. But I want to tell you 2 stories. One is when my oldest daughter was in 5th grade and she gets off the bus and she's walking down the gravel road with me and her brother and her sister and her mom. And I can hear her mom say, "We need to tell Daddy." She goes, I don't want to tell Daddy." She goes, "No, you need to tell Daddy." And so I hear this, I look around, I'm like, what do you not want to tell Daddy? Yeah. She's like, "Well, a boy likes me at school." Guys, I'm going to tell you something right now. There's a lot of instinct in there that's like, okay, which boy? What's his name? Where's he live? Right? Like that's the initial inclination. And I'm not saying it's a bad inclination. I'm just saying that by the grace of God, I thought a little better of it in this particular moment because I've made.
And that's good too, because let me tell you something. If you, again, what's the alternative? Like, do you seriously think that your daughter is made to be under your wing and without a husband for her whole life? Do you think that's how God's made her? Because I don't think so. And I'm just going to be real with you. I don't think that's how God's made most of the daughters out there. Like, they're made to get married one day. So you need to be raising them as good spouses, raising them as good wives, raising them as good caregivers and nurturers that are one day going to have a husband. Like that, I think that needs to be in your mind when you're raising a daughter. Like, I'm raising you, and God's entrusted me to turn you into a good spouse. So like, I'm going to do my best, but you need to understand, like, I think a lot of dads approach parenting as like, my girl's going to be my girl forever, not someone else's wife. And that's not what's going to be good for your daughter in the long run. And I know you really love your daughter, so let's make decisions that are conducive with God's plan for your daughter instead of yours. Because your plan is not going to lead to her happiness, A. It's not going to lead to grandchildren, B. It's not going to lead to, a lot of good things that God's designed for your future. So like, yeah, raise your daughter to be a wife. Don't raise her to be your daughter without a husband forever. Because that's not probably, again, playing the odds, that's probably not what God's designed her for. So I think that's an important one. And we need to hear that as dads, because I see a lot of dads that do this. They hope, it's like they're secretly hoping or acting like romance will never come into their daughter's life, or they're hoping that marriage will never play. And I don't know why that's there exactly. Maybe it's like a jealousy type thing or so. I don't know. I'll probably understand when I have a daughter, but I also know that it's not good for me to raise her to not be a wife. That's probably not going to be the play. That's not going to be the best decision for her or, grandchildren, or the flourishing of the family and the expansion of the family, the, heeding the words of scripture, anything. That's not going to be in line with that. So, yeah, I think when she comes, like, this is going to happen to me one day. She's going to meet somebody that's given interest, that's put an investment into her, that's got attraction for her, that's got the commitment. Well, she will meet somebody that has the commitment, but I'm saying I don't know when it'll happen, and I don't know, anything like that, but I know it's going to happen, and I've got to be warm to that idea and not cold to it, because that's God's plan. That's God's purpose in all likelihood. Again, it could be that she's playing the odds. She's not going to be cut out for singleness. So
Made those jokes with my daughter at this point, right? And so I said, sweetheart, tell me what's going on. She goes, well, this little boy likes me. I said, okay. Do you like him? And she starts to blush. And I said, sweetheart, if you like him, that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? It's fine.
Yeah.
I said, look, the bottom line.
It's not just fine. I'm going to tell my kids God made that way. That's totally natural. That should be happening. Like, this is always going to be this is always going to be where you are going to end up. Like, there's never, again, playing the odds. There's always exceptions, but you hear my heart. General rule here. Like, I am not upset at you for, wanting that future, or wanting to have that connection with another person. That is not that I think daughters need to know that. They need to hear that from their dads. Like, this is awesome. Now this is also real dangerous if you do it wrong. So here's some things we need to consider. Before we take actions here, there's got to be some there's got to be some things done and things understood on the end of both parties and things like that. And so, yeah, I think, it's an exciting, thing. It's just, I think the daughter just needs to know that it's a good thing. That marriage is a good thing. And again, here's the thing, Christianity, parents act like marriage. Yeah, they're like, marriage is awesome. Marriage is a good thing. And then when their daughter expresses interest in a man, they're like, what the heck? And it's like, what do you think marriage is? Marriage is a romantic covenant between a man and a woman. Like, it's not like some sort of friendship buddy roommate living situation between a girl and a girl, or a guy and a guy. Like, this is a romantic thing. This is an attraction thing. Like, This is how God made it. Like, yeah, but it's just so funny to me that parents will be like, yeah, we're so pro marriage, we're so pro marriage, and then they'll be like rolling their eyes and exhaling and being like, talking all like aggressive and gruff when their daughter's bringing up a man. Like, and I'm like, you know that you have to go through that to get to the marriage, right? Like, what do you? That's a step of the marriage relationship right there. Like, that's just as beautiful as, grandkids and stuff. So like, I just don't understand why there's that hurdle for dads in particular, I think, and women, and moms sometimes. Like, why are you excited about the idea that your children are going to be married one day, but you're not excited about them taking the first step towards that, which is entering a committed relationship with a person of the opposite sex? I don't understand. Like, that's step one. That's part of the process.
Is that he's already told you that he likes you, and quite frankly, any boy that recognizes how wonderful and beautiful and smart you are speaks very well of him. So I'm already inclined to think that at least this boy has good judgment, even if he's dabbling with death right now. And she kind of laughs. So I said, so all right, so this boy likes you, you like him. What did you tell him? She goes, I told him that we're not allowed to date. I said, okay. What'd he say? He said he'll wait. Keep in mind, this is 5th grade. But you got to respect the Riz, right? As the kids say. And I said, okay. I said, well, sweetheart, he sounds like a gentleman. Do you know why we don't let you date? And she goes, yeah, Daddy, I know why. I said, okay, explain it to me. And she goes,
man,
well,
that's such a good question. That's such a good question, because by golly, if my girl can tell me what the danger is in dating, and she knows the dangers, and she knows the heartbreak potential, and she knows the sexual struggle potential, and she knows the consequences of all the decisions that she could make. She knows the potential there. Man, I think she's ready to date. I really do. Because she can make wise decisions. She can make wise decisions. This is such a good question. I love that he said this. Ask your kids, when they get to that age, Maybe he said 5th grade. Probably older than that is when they're going to understand, everything about dating. When they get to that age, just ask them, why do you think we take dating so seriously? Why are there so many rules around dating for us? That's such a good question, man.
We're not old enough to get married, and dating is not just about trying things out. Dating is about getting married. And if we're not in a position to be able to seriously consider marriage, well, then we should focus on things like our education. At this point, beaming father, I'm very, very proud, because that is the correct answer. And that's what I told her. I said, yeah, sweetheart, that's true. That's true. I said, but let me explain something else to you. It's not just about the fact that you're not ready to date right now or ready to get married right now or anything like that. It's not just about the fact that this is the time of your life when you need to be focusing on things like your education and learning and thinking about the things that interest you and what you might want to do and the capabilities that you want to develop.
I think you can go too far down this road, though. And I've seen homeschool parents do this, and I'm not saying they did parenting wrong. I'm just saying I don't know that I'm going to do this with my kid. There's what's the word? God has clearly designed. Like, okay, I observe this in the classroom, all right? You throw 650 kids together, both boys and girls, in a school together for 7.5, 8 hours a day, and you don't push them towards romance, but romance is going to happen. Why? Because that's how God's designed it. You got these little feelings start forming. You got little boys and little girls start, expressing interest in one another. And it just happens because that's how God's made it to be. Again, this is just the way the universe works. This is the foundation of God creates man. It's not good that man should be alone. Creates partner, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, rule, reign, subdue. Gives them a job. That's like the foundation of the scriptures. Like, so it's like, the beginning of time. That's how it starts. It's always going to be like that. It's always going to be, God's made it that way. Of course, you can do things crazy wrong. But at the same time, it's like it's naturally going to happen. You don't have to teach your children to want it. Like, they're going to want it. It's in them. It's naturally going to happen. So you teach them how to steward that and make good decisions with that, because there are obviously a million and one bad decisions you can make with what God has given you. So, yeah, I don't think that you squash it. I don't think that you just put it off with no reason, for no reason. I don't think you postpone it for an eternity and don't teach them in the years prior leading up to that age at which it's great to get married. You got to be teaching them the whole time. You got to be teaching them, I think in all likelihood, they're going to be designed to get married young. And I've talked about that before. So you teach them how to be a good spouse in those years leading up to when they can get married young, which is still young, by the way. And so that when they get there, they're ready and they're not having to learn a bunch of stuff and spend even more years not able to get married in a healthy way. And so, yeah, I think this is these opportunities you take, you don't run from, you don't shut down dating, you instruct, like you teach them how to handle it. Yeah.
That's all important. I said, but what this is really about, and I'm saying this to you as your dad who is never going to think any boy is good enough for you. I want you to get married one day. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to get married, and I want you to have the kind of relationship that your mother and I do.
Yes, absolutely.
I want you to be swept off your feet by some young man that God has intended for you and that you are going to build a family with. I want to be a grandpa one day.
Yeah.
I want all of those things for you, and I'm not going to hold them back from you. But what I want is for you to trust me that I do want that for you, and that I can help you avoid the things that would prevent it from happening, or at least make it a lot more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Because I absolutely believe that one day you are going to find that man and he is going to sweep you off your feet and you are going to be so in love. And I can tell you right now from experience, it is an incredible feeling.
That's
and I
awesome.
don't want you to have to explain all the guys that came before him.
Yeah.
I want you.
Can you guys think about that for a second? Like, this is another thing dating people don't talk about. Like, you carry trauma and baggage and heartbreak for your entire life. Your entire life. Those mistakes do not vanish. Okay? I don't care if you don't have, like, everybody's like, if there's not a baby out of wedlock, it's fine. It's not. There are hearts involved in this. Young people are forming their perception of the opposite sex through these encounters. They are, either avoiding or running into trauma that they will carry into their marriage. Okay, these are big. You're like, they're just kids. They're forming these things. They are forming these are permanent things. These things affect you and pop up in your life and produce emotions that you thought were 30 years old. And suddenly they're still there because it was very, very serious what was done. Okay. And so kids need to know, man, you don't I want you to enter your committed romance that lasts forever with as little baggage, trauma, history as possible. I don't want you to have to explain other partners you've had to your partner, your permanent partner. I don't want you to have to feel like you're being compared to your husband's past partners in your marriage. These things happen when bad choices are made in dating. So he's an awesome dad for pointing this out to his daughter.
To be very, very confident when you meet him that he's the guy for you and that you are the girl for him. I want you to meet a man that is worthy of you and for you to be worthy of him. So that's what I want for you. And here's what that led to, I think, is that same daughter is now going to be walking down the aisle very, very soon with a guy that is a great guy, a guy that I had no trouble telling him, yes, you can marry my daughter. I honestly believe that conversation that we had in 5th grade was instrumental, along with a lot of other moments between that moment and this one, in telling her that she could trust me and that I would give her sound counsel because I did want the best for her. Even in a moment that one day was going to be difficult for Daddy.
Yeah. And I'm sure it is. Like I know that's part of being a dad.
This
I'm gonna
Black
get
Friday
to that
gift
spot
cleans
one
your
day, and it's just gonna be, hard to walk my daughter down the aisle because I don't know, it just changes, how you relate to him and all that. But still, it's gonna come, and it's good for her, and it's good for you, and it's good for everybody, including the family. So let's go to his last tip. He's gonna talk about this here, and then we'll wrap this episode up.
All right. Number 7. Don't always threaten to kill her boyfriends.
Yes, yes, agree with this one too.
I didn't say never threaten to kill her boyfriends, but don't always do it. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before on making sure that your daughter knows that one day you do want her to be married and be happy. But the larger point, I guess, that I'm trying to make here is that your daughter might not want you to beat up her boyfriend, but she wants to know you would. And she wants to know you could. And again, I don't mean this as a cheap form of intimidation or a form of bravado or pride in yourself. It's more about illustrating the point that you want your daughter to know that no matter what happens in this life, you will always protect her. Yes, one day, she's going to be someone's wife, and she's always going to be her own woman, but she's also always going to be your daughter. I've always wanted my little girls to know that no matter where this life took them, they always had a home no matter where I was at. And then no matter what the circumstances or conditions, if they picked up the phone at 2:00 in the morning and said, Daddy, I need you here and I need you here now, I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there. And they need to know that.
That's a good thing for him to wrap the video up on. I like how I think that last point gets skipped over by dads a lot today. There's always like all these jokes and, like, I will shoot you if you do anything to my daughter. And it's like, okay, I think that needs to be there, but also like, what's the word? Like I don't think that needs to be said. What I think needs to be communicated is I am not interested in putting my blessing on you having a relationship with my daughter if there's even an inkling of potential that you will hurt her. That's what needs to be communicated. You do not have my blessing or my approval in any way if this situation ends and it has any possibility of ending with my daughter hurt and you breaking her heart. I have zero interest in that. And I will treat you as the enemy if you approach my relationship or your relationship with my daughter in that way. That's how it needs to be said. Like, the reason that I am not hostile but cautious is because I know the world is full of people who would hurt my daughter if given the opportunity. And I'm making sure you're not one of those people. Okay, so you need to know, like, I care about my daughter and I'm keeping her safe no matter what. And if I start seeing behavior on your end that is we're headed towards my daughter getting hurt, I'm going to take steps, okay? And hopefully I will have raised her to take steps, okay? And we are all collectively on the same team here. Me, my daughter, my wife, you as the potential boyfriend or whatever, trying to, ensuring that will never happen, okay? So I want to hear your word right now. Will you ever break my daughter's heart? Yes or no? Yes or no? Will you ever leave my daughter? Yes or no? Will you? These are things, and if again, you can call me, you can say, dating shouldn't be that serious. Dating shouldn't be that serious. Just let them have fun. I don't think that's what dating should be. Like, if you want to go play in the kiddie pool of dating, go ahead and do that. I'm not going to encourage my daughter to go there because, frankly, I don't see the reason. Like, that's just what is that? Like, maybe it has a point and a purpose of, like, again, just like playing house, kind of like, kids play house because, like, that's what God's made them for, and they're just kind of playing at it. But the way I see it, it's like, no, you should actually get a real house. Like, you should get a real marriage, and to get a real marriage, you got to be serious about dating. Okay, you gotta be committed. You gotta know where you stand. And so, yeah, that's how I'm gonna approach my relationship with my daughters the man that she brings in, having carefully selected. And I'm going to make sure he knows that. But really, I'm going to be confident that he already knows that, because I'm going to teach her to communicate that to him and be very like, I'm going to teach her to get like it. I'm going to, in writing, in recording, I don't care what, in like having him say it in a room full of witnesses, like, I am not leaving you. I am not going to just, lose interest in you and go find another woman. I'm not going to, what's the word? From the point we start dating on, we are getting married. I'm going to follow through with my interest in you and put a ring on your finger one day soon. And I'm going to marry you one day soon after that. And we are going to have children one day soon after that. We are going to continue to grow old together one day soon after that. And then we are going to die together one day soon after that, or I will die or you will die one day soon after that. Like, this is the steps. And we're not going to separate or end this union from during any of these steps. You're like, they're not married yet, they're just dating. I don't care, because hearts are invested at that point. So I think that's when the permanence should start. Okay. And that's how I'm going to raise my daughter. So really interesting. Yeah, really interesting video by Nick Freitas. Loved it, actually. If you enjoyed this video by Nick Freitas, reach out and let me know what your thoughts were through the YouTube comments or by sending the podcast a personalized audio or text voice message. Would love to hear your opinion and perspective on this episode. It would make this conversation instead of a monologue, and it would make this podcasting two-way. So I appreciate you listening today. Thank you so much for your time. God bless you, and I will talk to you next time.